Year 12 Maths Methods, the basics of composite functions you need to know. For a composite function, let's call this f of g of x. This can either be defined, in other words exist, or it can be not defined, in other words not exist. For f of x to be defined or exist, this means that the range of the inner function, which is g of x, has to equal or be the subset of the domain of the outer function, which is f of x. If this condition is satisfied, then the domain of f of g of x is going to equal the domain of the inner function, which is g of x. If f of g of x is not defined or does not exist, then this means that the range of g of x is not equal to or a subset of the domain of f of x. If this is true, then you need to restrict the domain of the inner function, and so we need to restrict the domain of g of x so that the range of g of x equals or becomes a subset of the domain of f of x. And so the domain of f of g of x would then equal the restricted domain of g of x.